following announcement has been paid for by the Celtic World Order.
Hello there, good afternoon, welcome back to Celtic World Order podcast. As always, I'm Steve O'Matt, and as you can see directly at my side there, familiar face there, OG, my bearded brother, my right-hand man, partner in crime, whatever you want to call him. It's Paddy Boy, and it's another beautiful afternoon here. We're going to talk about the weekend action. It was a beautiful day there, it was a good scoreline. It gives us safe passage through to the next round as we look to get that trophy back in, work towards a treble, Paddy, and of course now we know who our opponents are going to be as well after the draw last night. So, how are you in this bright and sunny afternoon, mate?
Yeah, all good, mate. Cracking weekend. The weather's been lovely. Saturday, nice and chilled with the family and things like that. And then Sunday, obviously, I was at the game with my wee boy. I took wee Finn with us, took nice Erin as well. My daughter, she loved that as well. Joe, that was on the podcast as well. Joe was with us. He was across in the North Stand, but he was away for us. We couldn't get tickets together. So, yeah, listen, absolutely fantastic. Really enjoyed the game. And, yeah, a few surprises and who I thought had good performances and stuff, Steve. So, we'll get down
exactly. I'm looking forward to it. And I think once we get into that, I think there'll be a few folk that'll be happy and maybe a wee bit surprised at Paddy's decision, if we will, your major mind up maybe after that performance, but we'll get into that. And before we do, as we just say, welcome back to everyone watching. If you're a returning subscriber, then thank you very much. We really appreciate the support, the continued support as the channel grows. If you want to help out further, you can. That member section, $1.99, is donation to the channel. It helps put everything all together. And of course, if you are new and you like what you see, like we hear, takes you 2 seconds, costs you nothing at all, and it's the most important thing you can do. Hit the subscribe button, hit the wee bell icon, you'll get notified every time we go live. We're also on X, that's our main social media, at CWPod1888. Paddy runs the TikTok because he wants to be hip, young and happening. Of course, we're on both Sky and Spotify as well. So plenty of ways to get yourself involved with CW, and hopefully you do that. But Paddy, let's get down to business. The game's passed. It was obviously yesterday, and it was a good day. It was a good day out. It was a decent performance against Hibs, obviously. We spoke about it off the back of the game in Edinburgh. We always knew it was going to be a wee bit different, but there was a nice wee flavour as well of the game because there was that circa 7,000 away fans in there. And certainly for what I saw, for what I heard, they had a very good support, very vocal. And it really probably just added to the atmosphere and the occasion of the day. Yourself, did you enjoy that?
100%, mate. Listen, we were in the main stand. Obviously, the Hibs fans just off their right-hand side, and the noise they made from start to finish, even when they went 1-0 down, they still sung at the top of their lungs. They were absolutely fantastic, and hats off to them. They didn't watch Hibs play the best that they've ever played, but their support was there from start to finish. Some points even drowning out the GB.
The club put out a wee thing for them saying, we're really proud of the support and all that we got.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a wee bit embarrassing, is it?
I mean, teams like that aren't really they don't really get much of that, do they? Like that kind of, especially you come to Celtic Park, you expect the Celtic fans to sing over the top of you. There was at some points the Hibs fans were drowning out the GB and the Celtic fans. And it was nice to see that. It was nice to see then it was relied on the Celtic players on the park to actually get the reaction for them to push on and make us actually get off our seats a little bit. And I think it did. I think it played down to that. I think Celtic went up the gears.
I seen that, as I said, I thought that ask you on that. I seen a lot of folks saying, that's wee guy Patter for Hibs. That's a bit sad, stick it in the trophy cabinet. But as I say, they've been on a right good run. And we put an end to it all, mate. We put an end to the Hibs run that was going on there. And I think when we look back at it, I've seen a couple of things, as is always, isn't it? The media have always got to try and spin it. And I think they put it out as a dogged Hibernian performance. And I'm not really quite sure because certainly if I watched it, looked pretty much like a cakewalk. And 2-0 was probably a bit flattering by the way the game panned out, because it probably could have and really should have been a lot more than that. I thought I'd compare, it was like two different teams. We always knew the home advantage was going to go in our favour, but Hibs, they never really threatened us at all, did they? I think I wouldn't go as far to say it was like a training match, but it wasn't exactly hard pressed, bar I think one good save that we'll go on to face Michael. It was plain sailing.
Yeah, it was, mate. It at no points did you feel that Hibs were going to actually cause us much drama, to be fair. However, we, at most points of the game, I would say, were doing that kind of thing where we try and walk the ball into the back of the net, taking too much time on it. I think it was a bit, not a lackadaisical performance by Celtic, but I think it was, I don't know, I just, it was more possession based than what I would want it to be. I wanted to see things happen faster. And I think it did later on in the game once Callum McGregor went off. I think that the dynamic of that changed a little bit. But for me, it was a kind of slow start. Yes, we got the ball up and down the wings and stuff, but there wasn't the killer instinct, the killer ball. There wasn't a.
No, in terms of starting off, obviously we start for the very beginning. We spoke about the lineup. We sort of surmised what was going to happen, and we says, it has to be the case that it was going to be Maeda straight through the middle. That had to be, and that was really the only substitution or change, if you want to call it that we had, whereas we'd eat it out, Jota in, and we sort of reshuffled the front three. I think it was a good game, particularly when we look towards the game coming up at the weekend against Rangers at Parkhead as well. It's a good sort of sample to go by, because a team that are really good, they're on form. They've given it the game each time we've played them, and also that wee bit of having the extra element of the away fans in there, which we really don't take much into account. But bear in mind, with 7,000 there, it's going about 2,400, I think, at the weekend. And no doubt, if you thought that the Hibs 7,000 were going to be noisy, then there's absolutely no doubt about it. The noise that's probably going to come out of that lot is going to be closer, if not more, and it's going to be a lot more of a ruckus, I think. So having that away support in there in that large numbers, I think, was good as well, getting into it. It's good to have that at home as well. Gives them a wee sort of a taste of what's to come, because there's going to be a lot of these players that are going to be playing in this derby match who have not had the away fans. They've had the Hampden, I know it's 50-50, but that, what I mean is that they won't have that extreme small minority element. Some guys have no sampled that, and you can argue and say, well, how come half of Hampden isn't going to be as ruckus as a small portion under 3,000? Well, until you go there, it's different gravy. It's a completely different atmosphere. That'll be the hardcore ones that are on the away ticket scheme and all that kind of stuff, and it's going to be more condensed. It's going to be more volatile. It's it's going to be a bit vicious, I think, and I think that's good for our players, because a lot of guys will know have actually sampled that. But I'm looking forward to that, Paddy. I'm looking forward to seeing it, and of course we'll get the nets up. And they're well needed, I think, when the Rangers are coming to town, mate.
Yeah, exactly, man. Better barricade the toilets as well. Listen, all jokes aside, it's going to. I think it'll play into Celtic's favour. I really do. You forget this is a staunch Rangers that are coming to Celtic Park, isn't it? This is a Rangers under Barry the Brogues Ferguson. He's going to come in there with his suit and his brogues and have Billy Dodge and Neil McCann swaddling along behind them. Do you know what I mean? They're going to come to Parkhead thinking they're going to bully us off the ball. Nah, it's not going to happen. Like, you look at them, they're going to come in here, they're going to be throwing everything at it. It's going to be knuckle dragging stuff. It's going to be all shit thrown at us. We don't care. Bring it on.
I think, Paddy, as we go into this game, obviously we're going to touch on the Hibs game, but I think we both were on the subject of playing Rangers, which will obviously come around at the tail end as well. It's the first game that, for me, there actually will be a proper wee bit of needle in it. Obviously, it's the first sample of the larger capacity of away fans, as we say. We know what to expect for that. They'll be champing the bit to get in there and make a noise and make a scene. You've obviously, as you say, you've got the Vault of Staunch has been unleashed on the touchline for them, and it'll be back to this. It'll all be about blood and snotters and tears and sweat and all that kind of stuff. And I really think that this is going to be a proper test from a physical standpoint for us against Rangers than anything else. It'll be very, very interesting to see how their game pans out during the week, but I'm really looking forward to this season. I think that yesterday was a good sort of springboard game to go into that, because albeit that we cruised it in the end, we were coming up against a team that have been in form, that have been playing well, that have given us a bit of trouble, and we managed to deal with everything, albeit that it was quite little that they put in front of us, but again, with that away fans, and at times, as you say, is them dominating over our fan base, and that just gives it a wee sort of extra edge. But in terms of the actual performance itself, to touch back on the game, I felt it was very controlled. What you say is maybe not lackadaisical, possession based, maybe dialing it in a wee bit at times. And I think that was
Yeah.
largely down to the fact that Hibs hadn't really offered too much. I was looking at this game and I was thinking, who do I want to see good performances from? And obviously get that from yourself. I felt that Kuhn was due a good turn in a game. Thought was waiting for him to show something. Getting Jota drop back in, see where he's at in terms of how he's going to be performing. I thought he looked pretty good as well. But again, and we'll go on to it because I'll let you take it away. Engels and Hitati, I thought both of them were very, very good. Hitati's looking a lot closer back to what he had been before, the guy that you fell in love with and can't get enough talking about him.
Yeah.
But Paddy, talk to me about Arne Engels, because when I spoke to you yesterday after the game and I asked you what you thought about it, you told me that you focused your attentions on him for the vast majority of the game and you were impressed. Yes. No, so, he's frozen up. Just right at time
Yeah,
there that he's
listen.
going to do that.
No, I think I'm back now.
You're back, I can hear you.
Listen, for me, I was looking for a performance for Arne Engels. I really was. Arne Engels was the one for me that I was looking for a big match day performance. And I think he did. I think he showed it. That's probably the best I've seen him since the Slovan Bratislava game, when I thought he was outstanding on that night. Ever since then, I've kind of held this price tag over his head and said that he's not playing up to the 12 million and things like that. But Sunday, I noticed a different dimension to his game. He was slotting in, he was doing, you said it before, he does the dirty work, he does the shit stuff that nobody else wants to do.
Yeah.
And I noticed that when Hitati went on a run, Engels slotted in and covered them. When Alistair Johnson went out of position, Engels slotted in and covered them. And he just seemed to do that all round the park. He noticed every single movement of every player. And when they were out of position, he was in their position. And he was locking it in. And he was doing as good a job as them in that position while covering for them. And then when he got the ball, he seemed quite comfortable on it. Didn't really make any misplaced passes. I just thought, all in all, it was a good sterling performance for me. It's good to see, and I'm hoping that this is the player that we're going to get from now on.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we need to say. For me, the midfield three, we'll go on to, obviously Cal McGregor comes off, things sort of flipped up and changed around the way things go. And again, that, as you say, in your opinion, that accentuated a lot of guys' performances in there. That's not to say that Cal McGregor's putting the shackles on anybody, not at all. But it's good to see that we're now past few games. Yes, we know he maybe had a wee bit of a knock there, but it's good to see as well that we're not being as heavily dependent on McGregor. That's been twice that he's been brought off at that sort of 70-ish kind of mark, 65, 70, and he's been taken off, whereas you've always been going that well and you've been playing him to death and playing him in. But I like that. But in terms of the games, he started off, I thought we looked fairly comfortable. I was quite surprised at Hibs because of what we'd seen in Edinburgh. Everything that they had done up there in terms of maintaining their shape and quick press and getting toppies, there was really none of that. And as you said possession based, but I just felt that we had the ball at will and we were able to sort of just knock it about. And I think when you look at the stats at the end of the game, the possession was massive for Celtic. It usually is at Celtic Park, as we well know, but it was, as I said, it was just a bit of a free-for-all for us. We were given it at will to move it about. And I did like what I saw. I think it looked something a wee bit closer to what we have been before, with a couple of early chances, of course, with the Cal McGregor one, and then we had the Maeda one as well, where he gets put through. And people are saying it was a penalty for Bashiri. He sort of puts him off and he fires it through. You said that you thought that Bashiri had the beating him up until the goal in that first half.
Yeah, listen, every time Daizen was backing in towards Bashiri, he was just getting shoved off the ball. He's a big bit of a boy, let's face it, and he's always one of these guys that he's good for a yellow or a red card. He's one of the boys that doesn't hold back. He's straight in. He's a kind of old school Bobo Baldi type defender. He's got a good bit of pace about him. He's never going to catch Daizen, and he knows that as well as we do. But every time Daizen was backing in and trying to get a little bit of the better of him, Bashiri was just giving him a wee knock and a wee nudge. And a few times Daizen went down, and Nick Walsh just, not interested, back on your feet. And when you get that kind of game, I think he was just looking at the size of the two of them and going, it's just a difference in size. It's nothing. There's no much in it. And it was very similar with the penalty incident as well. Don't think there was a lot in it at all. It wasn't a penalty for me.
No, that's the thing. He was cutting a bit of a frustrated figure, I thought, at times, was Daizen Maeda. He was getting into positions. He was doing everything he sort of has been doing, but it just wasn't coming off from him. I thought physically he was kind of bossed in terms of that first half, but it was good to see. There was a lot of guys we spoke about. One in particular I want to mention was Nicholas Kuhn. We sort of said that recently he's been up and down and he's been sort of dropping out the game. I thought he looked a lot more lively than he had been. Obviously, I know we're still getting that overlap that you're getting for Alistair Johnson. That was working quite well. He threatened a few times. He probably should have had a goal, let's be honest. Obviously, he gets centred, the ball comes through to him. It's his shot initially that's saved. It spins off to the side, and Maeda's just quick to react as he is and pokes home for 1-0. But over the piece, I thought Kuhn was shown a wee bit of bouncing back. He was coming back and looking a wee bit more dangerous, a bit more a threat than he had been. I felt that maybe it's the case that we've had Jota back and there's been a lot coming down that side, particularly when we switch over. Maeda's been coming central, but he has always got a tendency to kind of stick out to the left and bring himself in. A lot of our play in recent games have been going more left heavy, I think. So maybe detracts a wee bit for what's going on with Kuhn down there. But he was doing the right things and was getting involved. And again, as a sort of precursor to playing Rangers at the weekend, I felt in the right direction. It's what we wanted to see. His running looked strong. He was showing a decent turn of pace, going inside, going outside, using the overlap. Probably, for me, a goal missing for that game. And I would have saying that was a very good performance for Nicholas Kuhn.
Yeah, it was decent. We've yet to see a good performance for Kuhn against Rangers, let's be fair. He always seems to be a passenger, and he's hiding in the games, I say. But this game against Hibs, obviously, that was the main stand. So he was right in front of us for the first half.
Yeah.
And he's touched tight to that byline. He's always on it. He's always on the line. And as soon as he gets the ball, he's facing the defender. He's no fear to face defenders up. He knows he's got a bit of pace and he's got the skill to take it by them. The overlaps for Johnson are incredible. They two just work so well together. And as I said, obviously, when Johnson was going in to do that, Engels was slotting in it at right back. So it's so nice to see the team just working. It was just like everything was in motion and you could just sit there and watch it. You knew the goal was going to come. It was just whether do you get that sort of comfortable feeling? Because that was the thing. The goal comes on. It's fairly late by the standards of the way the game had been going. We've had all the ball with all the pressure and it just wasn't coming off. So the goal probably felt like it was quite late. It felt a bit delayed. It felt like it should have came a lot earlier, but we get there in the end. But I felt that we were just controlling the game. It was very much third gear. It was as if we were seeing the game out before we had even scored. Do you know that? It was one
exactly.
of the games.
It was a strange feeling. It wasn't a bad watch. It wasn't a tough watch. I didn't sit there and think this is going nowhere. What are we doing? But it was a bit of a peculiar game. I felt it was. There was plenty of decent tempo and moving the ball around without actually being overly dangerous with that.
But then let me put it in the other foot, Steve. We'll see if we come up against Rangers this week coming, right? And we play the same way. And we are sitting at 1-0 at maybe the 80th minute.
Yeah.
Do you still have that composed feeling? Do you still have that, we're sound here?
It's a tough one. I think when you look at the game against Rangers, regardless of what people want to say about the standard of where we are as a club, where we are as players on the pitch, management, all that kind of thing, you know yourself, you never really feel, or at least I don't feel fully confident in those matches until there's a proper breakwater between you. Until there's at least a 2-goal buffer, because there's been very, very peculiar things that have happened in games gone by where you feel you're cruising and then you lose. I mean, look at, for example, the cup final against Rangers when we thought, we were absolutely dominated. We find ourselves going behind, then we find ourselves going ahead, then we peg it back. So I just think that the history of that game, particularly recency, in that game has showed that you can't take that one for granted. You really, really can't. I sat here and I said to you, and I said to a few folk, if we don't go out and beat Rangers comfortably I'm not necessarily meaning smashing them. Of course, I would love that. But again, when we look back, when's the last time that we've properly gave them a right good going over? Like,
Yeah, probably
you know,
3-0 game or something.
Aye, like 3-0, but I'm talking into that 4 and beyond, like a proper doing. That's not as common in recent times as it had been. So I just don't feel that that's on the cards, despite the sort of fanfare. And I think a lot of fans, and rightfully so, because the clubs are worlds apart, there's always that maybe slightly overconfidence getting into these matches of they're on their arse, they're this, they're that, we'll absolutely do them, and it doesn't happen. Because sure, that was meant to happen in the game we get beat at Ibrox. Let's not forget, that was supposed to be the script for that game, according to a lot of people, and that was a multitude of errors. That was just a complete and utter disaster. But I'm exact same with Kaiser. I would take anything. I would just take a win. I would like to beat them comfortably, but I wouldn't feel confident, or I wouldn't feel like we were going to comfortably see the game out at 1-0. And I will get on to that, and that's many variables. One, they do have guys that are dangerous, but also you never know what you're going to get for it. You never know what you're going to get from an officiating standpoint. So that's why I would always say Celtic need to take care of business so that anything else, any other factors, don't have any bearing on the match. That's all I would say about that one, mate.
What about Zidane Diamandi in the middle of the park, mate? He's, do you know what I mean? This is a wee bit laughable, isn't it?
This is the kind of hyperbole that you're going to get out the Scottish media, and it's well say there's a game coming up. Well say Celtic have just beat Hibs and get through to the next phase of the Scottish Cup, and there's a game against Rangers midweek, because I also saw that they're trying to sell Nicholas Kuhn to Newcastle United, Kuhn that we were just talking about there. And of course, after that game, I don't know who it was, I don't know what sort of crack they were on, but a Daily Record article was sent to me and I laughed at it, where they were comparing Diamandi's performance in Turkey to a prime Zidane. I mean, seriously, come on, these two things are not the same.
Absolutely ridiculous. Listen, fair play. Their performance against Fenerbahce the other week was all right. Fenerbahce looked poor, but yeah, there was no way he was getting compared to an extremely poor Zidane when he was 12-year-old or whatever. It was nowhere near that kind of standard. But yeah, listen, going into this game, I think it is going to be everything thrown at us. It's going to be knuckle down in the middle of the park. I think that's where Barry Backwards will think that he's going to win it. He's obviously a midfielder himself. He knows what it takes.
Balls in the house.
How you doing? So I think that's what it's going to come to. I think it's going to be a bit of a kind of a bully tactic in the middle of the park, and I think we've got everything in there to.
It's going to be a fighting. But listen, we'll touch on that. We're getting down a wee rabbit hole and diverting away. Welcome, Paul. It's good to see you here. We were just been on a wee tangent there talking about the Rangers game. We'll go on to that. But in terms of the weekend's action, we've just got ourselves up to roughly the goal before half time. How did you think of the performance there the weekend against Hibs, Paul? Because we knew that was potentially going to be a tough one, particularly after what we saw in Edinburgh. Fairly impressed with what you saw, mate. Is there any standouts for you in that game?
All right, lads. Thanks for having us on. That game, I would say I was very impressed with the fact that we seemed to have overall control. The build up to that game was that it was going to be something that I think we largely took care of. I don't think there was any real scares in the game. Hibs had a wee bit of an ascendancy given their recent form, and so they should. Coming into that game with 14 games or something unbeaten.
Possible. I think it was maybe more than that, but it was a right good stretch. They went a right good. It was tail end of last year since they've last lost a game, and they're certainly been on the ascendancy. But I think about a cup game, it's slightly different. Obviously, we knew at Celtic Park, as we say, it was going to be different. But we were sitting there and we're talking just before you came on about some of the sort of performances. It felt like a bit of a peculiar first half. We'd plenty of the ball, we looked composed. I wouldn't say it was like a training match, but you expected the goal to come earlier than it did. But
Hibs seemed to sit in. Sorry, Hibs seemed to sit in and defend and invite us on, which I was quite surprised at. I thought they were going to go full steam ahead and come at us, down the flanks and through the middle of the park. But to be honest, they seem to be quite happy to sit and let us dictate the play. So, I mean,
I mean, that's the thing. I was quite surprised with that. I really was quite surprised with it, because after we know that sometimes teams are a bit, so there's a bit of trepidation there, but they don't want to come out at Celtic Park because they fear they're just going to get picked off and absolutely battered. But and I know it's a bigger pitch and it's home advantage, not, but as we say, is the sort of extra wee bit of edge for them was that big corner, that big 7,000 away supports that were making a fantastic noise. So Hibs performed so well as they did against us, and as they have been doing on this run that they've been on, because they've been taking the game to teams and not being fair and not sitting back. So I just felt that it was a very, very strange tactic for Hibs to go for, because essentially, they had nothing to lose and everything to gain, because the expectation level on them to beat Celtic in qualifying, go through to the next round, were some to nothing, if we're being totally honest. So I was surprised that it didn't go down on their sword rather than, as you say, sort of sitting in.
They've got a lot of really good young players and really physical. The boy Bowie, he was also throwing himself about, but I thought he was really putting himself about and about our defence. He's one to probably keep a wee eye on him. Quite impressed with what I see with Bowie. But I thought overall our game management was top drawer. I thought we really did control the game, especially in the second half. We didn't look like conceding. We just looked like we could play Hibs all day. And 2-0, we'd have taken that before the game. But no, I think we march on now defiantly after the last few games since I've been on, and the form is continuing, and long may it continue. Looking forward to the weekend.
Yeah, definitely. And just before, obviously, we get the goal, and just before the half time, Paddy, obviously, of course, we get Hatai. So I've been, to say, coming on here and I've taken shots at Hatai for his commitment levels and his sort of effort levels that he's shown in recent games, but I can't fault him. In the past 3, he's shown a lot more. He looks a lot more lively. He's been getting involved. I don't know if this is I don't know if this is him wanting to spring into life and try to get himself in the shop window for a move at the end of the summer. But he's been looking a lot more lively. I think he's starting to work alongside Engels a lot more. I think the understanding between that 3 that we seem to now be dialing in, where it's McGregor, Engels and Hatate, that seems to be working very, very well, and they're all finding their individual roles now. As you say, Engels is doing all the dirty work. I said that's what I said that I think he does do. You've obviously recognised that, but it feels like he's more comfortable. That is what he does. He'll still pick out passes, he'll still show an attacking threat, but it's allowing Rio Hatate to forget about. We always talk about ball retention, keep him hold it, and not losing the ball. He's been a lot more attack minded. He's getting the ball, he's doing those wee runs, he's getting into good positions to take shots, and it's some brilliant balls, particularly in that second half. Some fantastic through balls that he done there. But I really like the sort of rise that we've seen with Hatate. He was unlucky with that. It was a good save off the goalkeeper, and other than that, there wasn't really much threat. I just want to touch on the one chance that Hibs did get, which was the quick throw. There was a lot of arguing about that, and it was quite funny because I don't know if you've heard that. I think it was last week or so. There was a Rangers fan came on, and he was complaining about the amount of balls that were sitting around the park, right? And how it gives Celtic an advantage because there's only meant to be 6 balls or whatever the hell he said, and they've got like 12 balls around that park, and it's an advantage to them. Well, it was almost an advantage to Hibs. Admittedly, they probably stole about 5 yards on that one and took the quick throw, but it's a brilliant save for Kasper Schmeichel, showing his worth again. I'm interested to know if that one gets in, or is that getting called back?
Probably not. Again, if we do it, it's playing to our advantage. We've got this multi-ball system, I believe they're calling it, aren't they?
Multi-ball,
that's probably come in for the 49ers. That's something that they can maybe bring in. But yeah, listen, that's what it is. You remember it years ago when was it Tottenham Hotspur? And the wee ball boy jumps up in the Champions League and throws the ball to the player. He puts it up the park and they get a goal from it straight away.
Yep.
And Mourinho takes the wee boy into the dressing room, gets him a signed top and stuff and all of that kind of stuff. But that kind of thing in a game, it's going to benefit both teams. It really is. And I think if that goes in, if Kasper doesn't pull off that save, then I don't think they're pulling it back. I think it's just a tough shit Celtic moment. I think Kasper steps up though, does what he does best. I think it's absolutely incredible save.
It's a brilliant save. He was going off his absolutely going off his nut. That's the only time we get caught short. And I think with that there, that's something that we need to have our wits about us, because we always play with quite a high line, as we well know. And we're going to go in between talking about this game and how that might affect the game at the weekend and stuff. But as you says, Celtic have got the balls all laid out so they're accessible. It benefits realistically both teams. It's going to be there at the weekend, and as we say, we know that Rangers have got. We've seen it against Fenerbahce. They've got the pace to get in behind and take advantage. That's the kind of situation that you wouldn't be surprised that to be a Czerny. You know, like we've seen there with that save, getting in behind that. So we need to get our wits about us. We need to be there, and we need to be on top of that there, because that's the kind of thing that could get you caught out, particularly during the weekend. And it'd be absolute remiss to sit here and not mention that and to make out as if it's not going to happen and there's not going to be any threats there. But I felt that in terms of that was really all we got. Second half, I felt we started off well. I liked Jota was getting a lot more involved in the game. He seems to now be at a relatively decent amount of fitness, because he's always been quite tricky and gets past players with a wee bit of trickery, but he was doing a wee more direct running. He was just putting on the afterburners and getting in behind, and I quite liked that. He looks like he's got a lot more confidence. I don't know what it is, Paul, but he seems it's a slightly different version of Jota. Not in a bad way, he just seems more direct. I can never remember in his first time at Celtic Jota being that sort of head down, knock it by you, almost traditional winger style play, but he was doing that numerous times down that left hand side. He was taking on his man directly, just beating him with simple knock past and pace. It was good to see.
It's fantastic to see. It's absolutely brilliant just to have him back, full stop. And now we've got him to obviously progress and develop his fitness coming at this stage of the season, and he's just literally the best scenario is having a hungry Jota with a point to prove coming into these games that are coming up. And I noticed that his work off the ball was very noticeable, and he's really trying to bust a gut to get his fitness up. So it looks as if he's maybe there or thereabouts, and it's in brilliant timing for the weekend. But he's
you know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see similar to what Kuhn and Johnson have, having Jota and Schlupp. They two at some points they were linking up, and obviously Schlupp's got the pace to overlap and things like that as well, and that was quite nice to see. You've seen that more so in the second half. I thought Jota was quite quiet in the first half, but yeah, all in all I thought it was a decent performance from him. He did show a couple of the wee magic step overs and stuff and beating players, but like you said, Steve, there was more directness, there was more hunger. That was the only word I could use for it, was hunger.
And that's the thing, because realistically we go into the game on Sunday, that's going to be the starting lineup. I think what we saw there, that's going to be the starting lineup. So again, we don't know. People say don't care. You've got to care. You want to know what you're going to be up against. We'll see how they pan out, set up and the game on Thursday. That might give you a step for a hint of what you're going to get Sunday. The question of, where does their captain play? Is he going to be who Jota's going to be up against or whatever? Because there's no doubt in my mind, it has to be Maeda straight through the middle. Absolutely no doubt about it. Yeah. But it was good to see Jota offering something. He's never going to be as fast as Maeda. Let's be honest here. But the pace that he was shown, and he's got a decent wee bit of strength about him as well. Unlike Maeda would get past guys by knocking it past them and just beating them simply for speed. Jota's got a bit of speed, but he's also got a bit of strength. So what I'm getting at is he might be running and going past, say, Tav or whoever it is, and they might be shoulder to shoulder. The difference is he's got not only the trickery in the feet, but he's got a wee bit of strength to hold off and keep holding the ball at his feet, rather than, says Maeda, who would typically just knock it past you, burn you for speed and get in behind that way. So I'm really looking forward to that battle at the weekend and see how that one pans out. But it was a good starting point for him. I'd like to saw, obviously, you were singing the praises of Engels and obviously Hatate. I think that all the guys that we've been asking to maybe get a wee return to their form, step up, they showed something in that game. Kuhn looks a lot more lively. Jota is looking closer to that, almost like full fitness. Maeda continues to be scoring the goals. And of course, as I say, Hatate looks as if he's got a springy step as well. And there was at least 2 or 3 in that second half. Fantastic balls through. The one that goes through to Kuhn, he misses out on that. And then there's a wee 1-2 sort of set up with Schlupp, who knocks it past the post. That's the kind of sort of supply that we want to be getting out of him. We want to get those. We always say he might frustrate you, but he'll play an absolute world of a ball. Played at least 3 or so by my count in that game. Really, it could have led to goals directly.
No, 100%. And listen, it's what I say about him all the time. He's not one of these guys that runs about and does all of the kind of dirty stuff, like you said, what Engels done. You kind of looked at Callum McGregor and Rio Hatate, and they were nonchalantly kind of doing their job. They weren't doing anything extra. They were doing their job, and that was it. Engels for me done more than what the rest of them did. He was the one that was cutting in and doing everything else. Hatate, you know what you're going to get. When you put the ball into his foot, he's going to do that turn. He's going to face up the defender, and he's going to back him in, and he's going to do that wee spin that he does and gets away from him. Everybody knows he's going to do the spin, but they just can't take the ball off him. So when he does that, and some of the cracks that he has as well, the shots that he has, just unreal. The guy's got incredible talent. I've said before, I compare him to Tom Rogic, where he's got that eye for a pass, the dangerous pass, when he just cuts defences open. So for me, that's really nice to see. It's nice to see that coming.
Do you think he's here long term after the summer?
I don't think he will be.
If a bid comes in, I don't know. Sorry, Rodgers, as much as I echo everything Paddy's saying there, and he has absolutely world-class ability. If he's shooting, if he's taking, different opportunities, he also has the ability to kick the ball out at the park. And the first time I've seen Rodgers at the weekend shaking his head, the camera went at Rodgers just after one of his misplaced moments. And again, it's not a witch hunt. There's been several different things throughout the season, but he still has that quality. It just frustrates. But that's the first time I've seen Rodgers kind of looking as if he was shaking his head at him. But then he comes in with another belter of a shot at goal, and it's just...
Yeah. I think that's going to be one of the things looking forward. The Celtic are undoubtedly going to make changes. If someone's going to be full of changes, the Miller from Motherwell, he keeps on coming round and round. And for me, as I said, that's a trade-off that I wouldn't be against it, if I'm being totally honest with you. If you were to say you were going to be bringing him in and Hatate was going to be the guy who was going out the other end, then I think we've had a good couple of seasons out of Hatate, also with that injury period, and it wasn't ideal. So maybe we've not had the maximum out of Hatate in terms of, the length of time he's been here versus performances. But look, it'll take care of itself. See, as long as he continues to kick on and do what he's been doing here, I'll be happy with that. We do obviously get some subs, Paul, and I want to know what you thought of that. Obviously, of course, we bring on Ida, we bring on Yang, and we also take off Callum McGregor as well. And Paddy said that he felt when those changes were made, particularly with Callum McGregor came off, he noticed a notable shift and change in the way things went down in the midfield. For me, that's quite refreshing. I said that. I like that we're not going to the well and playing McGregor for the full 90, whether that's nursing him and trying to get more out of him, or whether it's just trying something different. How did you feel that the subs impacted for you?
I think, just to touch on the Callum McGregor situation, I think we will have to start preparing, as much as we don't want to, for life after Callum as well. He is getting, obviously, on a wee bit now in his legs and everything else. You can see it sometimes, he's not maybe as agile as he was, but he's still, absolutely brilliant for us. But I think we will have to just maybe protect him a wee bit to an extent, maybe next season, the amount of games. If we're in Europe, we're in the Cups, and there is a possibility where we give McCowan or Bernardo or Hatate or whoever else that we run the 3 or 4 games and say, look, Callum can come out for a couple of league games or whatever, but he's still absolutely brilliant, don't get me wrong, but I just think long term we might have to prepare for that. But the subs at the weekend, I thought Yang come on, I was looking forward to him after his St Mirren heroics. He's still doing his bit. Didn't really get, I think, much of a chance. I'd like to have seen him playing a bit longer at the weekend, if I'm honest. But he's still making himself, he's got the right attitude. He's doing what he can. I think Ida, I was delighted for the big man getting his goal. I think he really needed that, just to keep himself, tucked in there behind Maida and the manager's thoughts as well.
No, are you in the Yang gang then, Paul? Is that what you're saying?
Aye, are you? There we go.
What's that?
Are you in the Yang gang?
I'm more in the Yang gang than what I was. I've maybe got a foot and a half in the Yang gang. I'm not completely committed, but listen,
you know what, guys? There was a cheer at Celtic Park when he came off the bench. There really was. The wee man. Do you know what? He's got a bit of a build about him as well. Actually, I thought he was just a wee skinny guy, but seeing him kind of up close for where I was sitting, he's actually got a wee bit about him. And obviously, he did have one of the chances where he scooped the ball over there.
We'll see that this is the point. This chance, and this is another brilliant ball, by the way, that's played in onto the feet. is he got to leave that for Ida? Because he does kind of running on it. The two of them kind of come across each other's path there, and obviously Ida gets his goal. But I felt that for me, by my eye, he looked to be in the better position to sort of to get on the end of that and take the shot.
Yeah, but I think, do you know what, Yang, as Paul said there, he's a young player. He's confident at the minute. He's seen it and he's thought, do you know what, I can get this, and he's had a wee dig, and obviously the balls went where it did, and the boy I was sitting beside kind of went, oh well, he's fucking back, isn't he? I was like, yeah, that's us, mate. We've had a couple of games. We'll just put him back in his box, and maybe his girlfriend's away home. I don't know.
On the subs, obviously, Yang comes on. I didn't think he was particularly good, if I'm being honest. I felt he wasn't bad. Doing the right things. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad, but again, this is where it's a reminder of why you don't get ahead of yourself, and you take all these wee purple patches and returns of form and the faith that management show him. You take it at face value. Don't get too ahead of yourself, because he is a young player and it's all about consistency. He's got to show that beyond a wee run of 3 games or something. Do you know what I mean? So it was a lukewarm against Hibs there. If he gets time against Rangers, how will he do there? Between now and the end of the season, if he can show some level of consistency, then I might start to get a wee bit more excited. As I say, in terms of Yang, not against him. I don't think whether he plays phenomenal between now and the end of the season, or he's up, down. I don't think it'll have any bearing on whatever the manager's decision is with regards to strengthening the squad. It's not going to stop him signing 1 or possibly 2 other wingers. Put it that way. I don't see it happening. I never feel that he's going to be a guy that's going to muscle his way in and become a first teamer. If I'm proven wrong and that happens, I'll hold my hands up. I'm happy to it. That's no criticise on him. I just think he's going to be another option. He's never, for me, going to suddenly turn into a gem overnight. And
is there any like opportunity where Yang could get on loan?
I mean, there is, but then you've also got to ask yourself, if he's getting in and around the squad with these albeit limited impact sub sort of appearances, do you want to send him out on loan? Do you want to retain that option?
It's games, isn't it? It's games that he needs and confidence. You've seen what the result of that is if he gets a wee run. So he just needs maybe that wee chance to develop.
Aye. That's the thing. I just think that it'll be interesting to see how that one pans out. He's been getting a wee bit of game times. I says I don't think that's going to. I don't think that's going to really change too much in terms of the manager's thought process. Listen, he could turn into a brilliant player, and hopefully he does. And it's just the bargain hunting has been hit and miss for us at that price point. There's been some that have been great successes and others that haven't. So I just feel that to develop for Celtic to go in the direction we want, particularly Champions League and levelling up, Celtic should be looking at your base level of your players coming in. Value doesn't always equal quality, of course, but your base value, I'd say you might be looking about 5 million, 5.5 million, and have that as your sort of base level of costing of players, on the argument that should get you a better player or somebody that's a bit more, up to scratch here. And particularly when we looked at the names that were getting floated around, there a boy like Balakwisha, there was obviously the Bogus, that fell away. But when you looked at those sort of players, those sort of values and that sort of stature, I think that's more the kind of way that things are going to go. And as Kaiser saying, here's a rough diamond, remember what happened to Bobby Petta, that could well happen. I'm certainly not against him. I think that there's a place for him. I just don't feel that he's going to ever muscle his way in to be a first choice. So he's definitely got a good option there, but it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But there was a point that came up just before we went down the Yang rabbit hole, which was I've seen a lot of people say this. When Cal McGregor came off, people felt we played a lot better.
Yeah.
That for yourself, Paul, did you feel that the McCowan, Engels taking that sort of figurehead role?
Less touches. It looked as if the midfield was more agile to me. It looked as if the midfield was more free flowing. Again, whether that's just as a result, it just shows you how we can pivot. And I would like to see more of McCowan be able to come in. And that's what I'm saying about next season. I think there will be an opportunity where Callum maybe doesn't play the volume of games, and that's natural given the level of games, 60 games or whatever odds a season. I did notice as if the game had opened up a bit more, and it looked as if the midfield was more just free flowing. Definitely noticeable, and just less touches on the ball, which I would always champion in the midfield. There's no need to take 4 or 5 passes.
McCowan moved into Engels' position. He moved into the kind of off-right position, essentially, and Engels come back into Callum's position, like a centre midfielder. So, again, Engels was doing what he was doing the full game, just breaking up everything. But then, like you say, there was less touches in there because McCowan was busting forward, Hatate was busting forward, and it just put Hibs in the back foot straight away. And there seemed to be a lot more intensity for Celtic. And at that point, you knew the next goal was coming. You knew the killer goal was going to come. It was just a matter of time. And Hibs didn't look like they had anything at all.
Game management, I think, genuinely, we managed that game so well. I can only imagine that's what Rodgers, before the game, was really wanting the players to put a big marker down in terms of how we're going to manage Hibs out the game, and it looked that way with control everywhere.
So see what that change has been made there, guys. How do you think that could manifest itself looking at Sunday, right? Because as McFuster's saying, it is probably clear that we're kind of managing Cal McGregor. I think he had a slight knock and we're taking him off. But as I say, it's also good to see that we feel comfortable doing that. Now, bear in mind as well, even though Celtic had the lion's share of the possession and we looked comfortable in the game wasn't dead. The game is still, in the balance at 1-0. When we make those changes, we don't score till late on. So it's not as if we've made a change because it's a cakewalk and we're out of sight and let's start mixing things up and giving folk a chance and trying a different approach. So there's an element of trust there for the manager. He's bringing off the captain, maybe because he has to, but at the same time, he's doing it at an early kind of stage and he's allowing the guys to do what they do and trust them. As he says, I felt also, like you're saying, that we were taking less touches. It was a bit more purposeful, it was a bit more dynamic, a bit sharper. And a lot of people were mentioning that in that as well. Again, that's not a criticising Cal McGregor. He's an absolutely fantastic player, but it's just very interesting to see how we shift and you can argue looked a wee bit brighter and a bit better. Is that the kind of, can you see that happening, Paddy, at the weekend? Do you see if Cal McGregor is still in this nursing stage that he maybe is? Are we going to make a substitution with Cal McGregor as early as that? Or are we going to keep him on? Would you feel comfortable changing it up and going to that 3?
At 1-0? No. And each not. I think at that point you need somebody like Callum, especially in a game like this. I think experience counts for so much more. You said before, you need players in these games who know what it means, who have been in that environment, who have been. You said before, Steve, we're going to have 2,500 of the baddies in there as well. It's going to be one of them. It's going to be a backs to the wall performance. You're going to need to dig in at some points, and you're going to need, obviously, your captain and guys like James Forrest in around the dressing room, because they know what it means. They've got that, as Brendan always goes on about it, the mentality, and that's what he says. It's getting this mentality into the players where you can keep going, you can push on and do this, and having a guy like Callum in there, even if he's not having the best game, he brings the best out of everybody else. And Scott Brown done it prior to him, and you used to see it so many times. Even if Bruni didn't have the legs, come past the 70th minute, the guys beside him knew because he had the football in head, like Paul's saying there.
Paul, I'm going to ask you a question because I was talking to a couple of friends the other night at work, and we were mentioning the change up and McGregor coming off. And one of the guys, these are all Celtic supporters by the way, and there's no baddies trying to plant a seed, but one of the guys' opinion was, he said that he feels that the team play a lot freer when Callum comes off. Now, I understand and I appreciate, and as I said, I think he's been a great captain, he's been a brilliant player, he still is a great player. But we've just spoke about how the dynamic of that whole midfield changed, and there was a lot of sharpness and a lot, maybe a bit more pops, a bit more free flowing. Again, that's not to say that he put some sort of shackles on them, certainly not. But one of my mates says that he felt that the team play better when he's not in the team. And for all this that we're saying, he brings experience and he knows what he does. They also say that they felt that Cal McGregor sometimes looks a bit nervous, and there's a nervous energy that maybe projects onto some of the guys on the midfield where kind of tenterhooks a wee bit. And he said, look back at the game against Rangers, and I know that was a nightmare. He says, I look at previous captain, or look at Scott Brown, and that steely look. It's like, Cal McGregor always looks like he's seen a ghost. He looks terrified. And I've never really felt that myself.
Aye.
I'm just throwing that out there because somebody said it to me the other night when I was talking about it. Is that just somebody reading into something too much, or do you feel that?
It's not something that I've noticed. I do think that Rodgers has the structure in terms of the midfield, and he implements Callum in there. You see Callum constantly talking and, you know, being in control as a midfield captain should be, the same way Scott Brown was. And I always feel as if Callum's got a really good control of things. But as you say, the style of play when Callum's on the park is pretty much the same as what we see regularly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It very rarely has a kind of mixture. So
he's one of the players, though, when he's out the team, we really see the difference. We miss him. We really miss him in there. And if you think back to a few seasons ago when he was out, I know it's a few seasons ago and there was a lot more left in his legs and stuff, but when he was out the squad, you notice a massive difference. And I think having him in there, like you said before there, Paul, the footballing brain, there's so much to be said for somebody that's got a footballing head.
Is there an evolution to be had in Cal McGregor? Now, we've spoke for many times to say the difficult thing for Celtic is going to be finding a long-term successor, because you could argue, and we've seen it, that when he comes off and Engels takes up that position, he becomes the sort of Cal McGregor, the upgrade potentially in the fullness of time, potentially. But the reality is we're not really going to get these guys, if we're honest, staying any more than maybe 2-3 seasons. There's a couple of, you know, anomalies where guys do stay a lot longer. But generally speaking, I think it's going to be hard to find a successor, because once he's on the wind down, then, you know, you're going to be rotating guys over every couple of seasons, which is the reality here. Yeah. But what's the evolution, Paddy, for Cal McGregor? Because one thing we saw variations of Scott Brown over his time there. And he always adapted and was able to find a new way and drop into the team. And Zah says, in the times where he has been playing and Celtic have played at their best is when Cal McGregor sacrificed what his default role would be to allow the other guys to be more creative. Are we going to see a change, particularly going into maybe next season, for Cal McGregor's game style?
Possibly. You said about Scott Brown. Listen, we've seen it. I hate to bring him up. He obviously managed Rangers as well. We've seen it with Stevie Gerrard when he was at Liverpool as well. They were in that attacking role, and then as they get to a kind of later stage in life, similar to what Scott Brown did, they drop back into a kind of number 6 role, just in front of the defensive line. It's less physical for them, but again, they've still got the mentality, they've still got the football and brain, so they can tell everybody round about them. Now, Celtic have always had that stalwart in the middle of the park, and I know everybody's going to say Carter Vickers for the next captain, Alistair Johnson for the next captain, Kieran Tierney for the next captain, Kasper Schmeichels even for a year. No, for me, your captain needs to be in the middle of the park, like Celtic have really always had it. You think back to all of the greats, you've got Scott Brown, you've got Callum McGregor, Paul McStay, Paul Lambert, you can rhyme all of these guys off. They've been captains and they're in the centre of the park, and that for me is where your captain should be. None of this guff having your goalkeeper as a captain and things like that. I don't agree with it. I don't like it. For me, you get your guy in the middle of the park. He's the most experienced person there. He knows what it means to play for the club, and he'll push on. I've got no fear whatsoever that Callum will come up against the baddies this week coming and put in an incredible performance like we're used to from him.
Yeah.
He'll dominate that midfield. He'll laugh off tackles. He'll do the dirty stuff.
I've seen it before. Seen it so many times before where he just comes in and just ups that level. So hopefully he isn't carrying any niggles and he's free to do that.
Well, looking ahead towards the weekend then, obviously the game takes care of itself. Ida gets his goal. It's good to see. It's another good bit of play down that wing. You get the cut back in. Good ball from McCowan.
Was the ball out the park though, Steve-O?
Oh no! I mean, I'm saying it was categorically in. You know, I can factually say that was in. So, but no, it's a good bit of work, and he gets his goal and he puts home. It's good to get that wee bit of confidence boost in there, as you says, and so likewise yourself, Paul. And I'll say, I'll be quite honest. I think it was good. Twofold. One, because it's a goal for him, gets his confidence up. However, it is also the first actual definitive goal that he has scored that has really truly meant something. No disrespect to him. I put this out when I had this debate about him.
Yeah.
He scored an average amount of goals, but his goals have largely came in. It's goal number 4 and a 5-0. It's goal number 3 and a 6-0. Stuff like that, right? This is the first game where the game's been in the balance and he's had the killer ball, a definitive goal, and that's good as well as we look towards getting into it at the weekend. Adamida, it's good. It's good that he's got a goal, bit of confidence for when he will inevitably come on as a sub. But that's all I can see him doing at the weekends, coming on as a sub. So looking ahead just slightly towards that, what's the expectancy for you here? There's a lot of fanfare, guys, around about what should happen, what we expect to happen. And again, as I said earlier, Paul, before he came on, it's easy to be maybe blasé and overly confident in these games. Look at what happened last time. I know that's maybe an anomaly, but the script was meant to be a tanking for them.
Yep.
I don't see that kind of performance happening again, but there's a lot of, believe it or not, I feel there's a lot of pressure on us, more so us than there is on them, despite our position. And I'll say that why. One, because we are expected to go and beat them, but also they'll have played a game midweek that could potentially go beyond 90. It could be 120 minutes potentially. There could be some tired legs in there, and theoretically they're depleted. So there's a lot more on it for us to put them down, put them at the sword, and put in a good performance. Whereas for them, it almost feels like a free hit. If they turn up and they get a result, look what we've done after playing midweek. Barry's a genius and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I just feel the pressure is a wee bit more on us because of those factors, and also because of what you call it, a revenge mission or whatever to get the job done after Ibrox, Paul.
Aye. I was on before Ibrox, and I was sitting relatively new to the channel, and was in kind of bullish confidence mode, 4-0, 3-0. It was all and look what happened that game, and in the run up to that game, I remember there was some talk about maybe some illness in the camp. Some people were saying, "Oh no, the team's fine." I have no. It was a bad day at the office, as we know. We're not going to dwell on that. But it's all looking forward. But we definitely didn't look ourselves in any shape or form compared to the imperious nature in which we've conducted our season right through. So I'm going to just kind of keep my powder dry on it. But the pressure is on us. There's no doubt about it. We're at home. We've been, as I say, imperious. I think that's my word for the day. And the lead up to this game, we will have the tails up, and the expectancy is that we will be putting down a marker. Absolutely. In terms of having. I would like to see the team being as physical as possible as well, because far too many times we've lost James Forrest after the cup game. He's still injured.
We'll get into this game. How much is obviously the reintroduction of Jota? We've seen that there. Maeda going through the middle is going to give us a completely different dynamic to anything that we've played against them before. We know the trouble that he caused in his traditional position, but playing him straight, direct through, for me, that has to happen. Make no bones, it has to happen. I said that every must-win game, i.e. something's on the line in the league, until the league's done, he has to start. Same with the cup. Next game against St Johnstone, he has to start. If we get to the final, he has to start. So every game where you have to win it because there's something at the end of it, for me, Maeda has to start. Completely different dynamic getting into that. We've got Kuhn, who's looking like he's picking his game up, as is Rio Hatate a wee bit. Engels, I've been consistent with, but some good performances. But how much is the addition, you're saying about being physical, the addition of Jeffrey Schlupp? Because let's look at the left back, the left side of the defence was always something that folk were concerned about. Does that give you a wee bit more confident just there? I
think the physicality element, which I need to, I love to see that in any team, has been missing, and it's been missing in big games. Although we've been successful in the season, is by far, it's not as if it's had a bad effect on the season. We're still at the high levels, and our expectancy is up here. But I've thought, despite the fact that Schlupp a couple of times at the weekend was almost kind of caught out of position, but apart from that, his defending is great, his use of the ball is great, and his engine is brilliant. Taylor has done his bit, and that looks as if it's going to trundle on into the summer and see what he's going to do, if he's going to stick about. But I really hope we make a huge effort to sign Schlupp. I'm quite impressed.
But that's the thing. When we look at Rangers, when we look at this Rangers side, obviously they've got the game against Fenerbahce now. So no matter what people want to turn around and say about Fenerbahce are crap and this and that, the reality is they aren't, right? That's just been ignorant because it's Rangers and you don't... Fenerbahce are not a bad team, right? They're not a bad team. I felt one thing I would say about them is that I was completely shocked. I've never seen a Jose Mourinho side that has been so weak and disorganised from midfield to defence. Bizarre, but what I'm saying is you can take elements of what we saw and how they broke down Fenerbahce to sometimes the way we play, because we play with a very high advanced line now, not as gung-ho as that, not as mental as at times it looked as if they had 5 up front, right? Madness. But what I'm saying is the success they got was for quick balls getting fired in behind, into your Czerny, into your Dessers, and they were making the runs. Now, that's typically been an Achilles heel from us. When we look back to the last game, we look back at the cup final, a lot of that was getting in behind, particularly down the left-hand side. And that's no doubt what they would have been looking at as being our weakness. With Jeffrey Schlupp in there now, I don't feel that opening is quite there for them as much. They certainly don't have it down the side with Alistair Johnson, and I just feel that him coming in, it takes away that element of shakiness. That out ball that they constantly went to the railway against us in recent times, I don't feel is there, mate, and that could be telling.
Yeah, I think it will, and I think having that solidity that Schlupp has brought us is brilliant. With Taylor, it always felt as if he would be okay going forward, but defending was his issue, and it feels like Schlupp's got that in reverse. He's got both talented at the back, and he seems to be able to come forward with the ball and pick out a pass, and the physicality is key for me.
And in terms of who's going to be playing alongside him, it looks as if it's going to be Austin Trusty. Again, a guy who was playing very well. He then had a wee bit of dip out, Trusty, because he got pulled out, had a bad out, and we also brought in Scales for the cup final. Then he's kind of worked his way back into the side as Austin Trusty. Are you feeling a lot more confident in that pairing now with Schlupp there? Does Trusty look a wee bit more solid with him beside him?
Aye. I still have a wee element of kind of concern with the jersey kind of tugging. I've noticed it in a few games where Trusty seems to get caught maybe wrong side sometimes, and there's the arms coming up, and he's kind of happy to try and kind of pull players back, and he's going to get caught with that. He needs to watch. Defensively wise, defensive play, he's solid. You know, he's good in the air. Scales will obviously be there for any time that Trusty's not going to be available, but I think the pairing for the rest of the season, as we know, will be Trusty and Carter Vickers. But in terms of Trusty's kind of feelings towards Schlupp being in there, it does look as if there's a bit more solidity, a bit more confidence, and there's no that kind of wee worry between them. But I think the likes of Trusty will be kind of pushed on by the physicality, and I just hope he doesn't give anything away or doing daft with it, but he has got that wee tendency to make a wee mistake. But overall, I think it's a solid back four.
Obviously, we'll cover this closer to the end of the week, and we'll do a proper preview once we've heard what the manager's got to say. Of course, we'll know how they've come out of their game on Thursday. That'll maybe affect and influence how the game pans out at the weekend, if that's maybe injuries or anything like that, or changes. We'll get a wee eyeball on how they played as well, and maybe give us a step for a hint, because I do think that when you look at the way that they played against Fenerbahce, if they do something similar against us, Snitch is saying, and I agree, if we turn up and do our game, it should take care of itself. But one thing is they were dropping into, not necessarily parking the bus as such, but they were dropping back deep, and they were having banks of full back, flat of 5, with who in front of it, defending, and then looking to catch in the break. If they do that, which is something they've never done against us before, I think that could be interesting, because sometimes we've found it difficult to break down Stuffy and blocked out and banked in defences, Paddy. But to hear a final word on this one before we go off, how does it pan out for you? What do we need to do, just based on at this moment in time, before a ball's been kicked for him on Thursday, before we've had any updates with squad and all that? Happy with how we line up. We've said that we feel that Schlupp's denying them an out ball. They've went to the well where on the last 2 occasions down that left-hand side, we look a wee bit more solid there, and I think that gives us a bit of an advantage there. But Paddy's muted himself, so he'll need to unmute himself before he goes. I can't do it, Paddy.
There we go.
There
That's
you go,
me. Yeah, listen, I agree. I think Schlupp takes care of Cherney on the left-hand side. I think that it's going to be trusty CCV and Johnson in there, as we said. With Callum, Engels, Hatate, and up front, Kun, Maeda and Jota. I think, obviously, starting with Maeda through the middle will cause them so much trouble. I really do. I think if they try the long ball approach, like you said they did against Fenerbahce, the chaos ball over the top, it wasn't so much chaos ball. It was a nice kind of dink pass over the top they kept playing. But it was very similar. It was a kind of dink pass. I think Trusty deals with that all day. Like Paul said, he's very good at the aerial battles. He's good in the air. It's the ground stuff that I'm not too convinced about. But you've got guys like Jeffrey Schlupp in there and Callum McGregor who'll break up the play, and obviously Arnie Engels and whatever else. We've got players in there that can do that kind of dirty stuff. For me, going into it, as they've said there, if we turn up, for me, we demolish them if we turn up. If we turn up and play the way we can play, we absolutely rip them a new one. I think it's going to be a different Rangers side to what we've seen, simply because of who's in charge. I think he's in that dressing room ripping them a new one. These are all, as we said before, staunch Rangers men, and it's going to be a different approach to them.
Do you think their result midweek has any bearing on how this game pans out? Now, let's just say they get defeated and they still go through. They'll still have they'll have disappointment defeat. They'll have positivity though going through. But what I'm saying is, let's say they go out. Does that do us any more favours than if they win? What, do they come down if they win a game against us? Do they come on a high? Do they come on a high, or do they try to pick themselves off a defeat? Does their result make any difference to us?
No, really. I think, as Paddy says, they'll be given the Hun direction. Backline will be in that dressing room shouting and motivating them. We just need to match that, and Brendan will come onto a different level, I think, again in these games, and just impose the importance of how we play and our method, and not being distracted by the antics that I think they'll put on, and the diving and again, I want us to be physical, but I don't want us to be daft. But we have got kind of a few points to prove and a few scores to settle. I
think the physical ones though, Paul, I think guys like your Raskan and your Diamande and your kind of Sterlings and your bigger boys, I think they're going to be the ones that are going to try and bully the midfield. I really do. That's the way I see this going.
Too many times we've been flattened with that, and it's unacceptable. So I'm really hoping that there is a return to us dominating the physical.
I think it'll be interesting. I do genuinely believe though that doing playing our own game and taking care of itself is all fair and farewell. But I do think that depending on how Thursday pans out, that could make a big difference. If they're coming into this full of confidence off the back of breaking through and potentially being comfortable, then I think they've got a bounce on it. I would rather they're coming into that game against us off the back of a loss. Because I think particularly not just a loss, but if they were to go out, I feel that would be massive, because they've got such a large lead at the moment by 2 goals. For them to let a 2-goal lead slip and go out, and particularly at home, I think could be absolutely massive for us. So I will be keeping an eye on their game midweek, and as I say, for various reasons. I want to see how they're playing, I want to see how they look, I want to see who they're playing. That will give you an idea potentially of what it is. Of course, I'd love to see a couple of injuries, and more importantly, I'd love to see them be roundly demoralised at the end of it, but I want to take care of. But I think at this moment in time we are in a good place. I think that the game is going to be physical, as Snitch is saying here. I do think that it's going to be, as we said at the top of the show, Paddy, it's going to be back to that. It's going to be full of that sort of blood snorters, thunder, snapping into tackles type of thing. And I do think that you will get a far more physically aggressive Rangers than we have done before, because we've all heard that Barry sticks the heat on tiles and doors and all that stuff before he was playing, and he'll want to sort of push that on his players. And I think, again, that could be an advantage to us because, as you've just mentioned, guys like Diamande, guys like Raskin that think they're hard men, they might just go too far.
Yes.
And that
100%. We've seen it before. You look at guys like Ryan Kent and whatever else, and El Hadjduf and all of these other has-beens, Joey Barton, all of these ones that came there and thought they were going to do that, they were going to bully the midfield, and Scott Brown took care of them, every one of them, and laughed them off the park. Barry Ferguson said in his thing, remember when he became the manager, how he used to get up for the Old Firm game, Steve-O. He'll have them all in there biting their lips and punching tiles and arguing with the toilet floors and stuff. Do you know what I mean? He'll be in there giving it, like you said, blood and snotters and things
They
like
better
that.
have the money. They better have the money to pay for any tiles that are.
I'm looking forward to the game. I think for me, it's got a different dynamic. The staunchness of the coaching staff, the expectation, the fans back in, the form that they've been on. All right, they've had some defeats, but off the back of potentially they might get through. It's reality. They could get through in Europe in the spring and the step market stuff. So I feel that it's going to be the first game in a long time that's going to have a more traditional sort of needle to it that's been removed. You know, guys like your Gio and that, they knew what it was like to play. He knew what it was like to play for Rangers, but the reality is he was a nice guy. He was a decent dude, you know what I mean? And then you come on, totally different culture, totally different approach and things like that. So I think that it's going to be different. It's going to feel a wee bit more old-fashioned, this one, a bit more needle, a bit more snap in it, and I'm really looking forward to it, as I say. But hopefully we take care of ourselves. We'll see how the games pan out during the week, and of course we'll be here to cover that. So anyway, we've just been over an hour. Thanks to everybody for sticking and watching us. Thanks to you. I know you've got a job to be going to now, Paddy, and also Paul for jumping in and having a wee chat with us. Remember, before you leave, if you like it, wee thumbs up. If you're new, subscribe, cost you nothing, support the channel. And we'll be back. We'll see what's been happening midweek. And we'll preview the game. Looking forward to it. The build-ups this week's going. I'm wondering what other exciting stories we're going to get that are going to be goodwill stories for Rangers and falling apart at Celtic Park.
That Ian's injured.
Absolutely. It's going to happen. You know that yourself. But anyway, we'll be back midweek and we'll catch up with that. So take care of yourselves until next time. And as always, hail, hail. See you all later. Bye-bye.
Hail, hail, guys. Bye-bye.